Welcome back. We're ready to start with this wall with the arches. So what I'm going to do is select this wall and simply copy it over and bring it into our work area over here. And I'd like to put it right here on this platform so we know what it's going to look like. Now we have several options here. So let's take a look at the arch looking things here at our disposal. So first I'm looking at this one. I'm going to copy this over and bring it up and see what it looks like here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it down with the end key and center it here and bring it up to the edge. And now I'm going to copy it by rotating it by 180 degrees. And I'm going to select both of these and bring them over as a copy. It looks like they link together quite nicely. So that looks good. And I think I'll just go ahead and copy these again and repeat. So I'm going to link these together here. And it looks like I can have one more pair. So I'll go ahead and copy those. And it's almost perfect. It looks like the edge here is this piece and the edge here is the opposite piece. So that's almost perfect. So I think I might have to make some adjustments here. So I'm going to select all of these pieces and move them in to where it's centered right along here and line these cracks up with each other. That looks like it's pretty good. And so we're going to have to figure out what to do with these end pieces here. But overall, this archway looks pretty decent. If I right click and play from here, I can see what it looks like with the character, and it looks like she'll fit just fine underneath. That's going to look pretty good. Now we just need some bricks on top, make a wall there, and we need to figure out what to do with these end pieces. Now we don't have to have arches here. We can just replace this with brick. So I'm going to delete each end piece, and we're going to go ahead and decide how to put bricks for the rest of this. So let's take a look at what we've got here. I've got some pretty big bricks here. We've also got these large pieces here. These look pretty good. Now these are all the relatively undamaged arch pieces. We can use one or two of the broken ones. We don't want to use too many. We don't want it to look too repeated. But let's use at least one, maybe two of these broken ones as well. So I'm going to bring this broken one over, hit the end key to bring it down. And I'll stick this one on one of these, maybe this one here. So let's bring that in, lock it in place like so, and snap it right there. So that looks pretty good. I think I'm just going to use the one because if we use too many, then it's going to look kind of contrived. So I think that looks good. Okay, so now for the bricks. So we need something that's going to be as wide as the archway. So we need something as thick as the arches. So I'm going to take the arch here and just copy it over and see what I can find that'll look good with it. We're probably going to have to scale something up. However, these bricks do look relatively the right size. So let's copy these two over, bring them over to our arch brick, and just see what we can do here. So I'm going to bring this one up on top. And it's almost the right size. It's not quite right, but almost. So we can probably work with it. So that's looking pretty good. Let's copy one over. And we're going to bring it up on top, like so, and just kind of stack it on, see how it looks. Now, as far as size, I'm probably going to want it to be the same width here as one of these arches. So let's scale it down a bit, move it over, and see if that'll work. I'm also going to scale it in the up direction because I'd like it to be stacked just right. I'd like it to maybe have a little overlap so that way we don't have any light shining through on the cracks. So if it's a little too thick, that's okay. Let's go ahead and get this scaled right. We can even turn off snapping just to get it right. So this is just going to take some adjustment. Again, you know, this is something that you'll do as a game developer. It's just, you know, part of the gig. It's got some tedious parts to it sometimes, but that's also part of the fun of it is, you know, getting everything right so that it looks really, really perfect. And at the same time, you know, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, as long as, it serves its purpose and does its job. So once we have something that looks relatively good, then we can copy it over and see how it looks as a copy. And once we have several copies here, we can check to see if we have some problems as far as scale. So right here, we'll see that there's a crack. So that means I'm going to have to scale this up a little bit. So we can turn snapping back on and make a copy of this again and see how it looks with several. And that looks a lot better. So this is really just going to take some practice and some adjustments. Now, by the end of it, you'll see that it's off by a little bit. Now, if you don't care, you can just, work with it and copy it on up. If you do care, then what you can do is simply center everything. Another thing you can do is you can go to the middle arch with every brick selected and align the middle cracks. And that way, yes, it's off by a little bit, but it's not going to be very noticeable. That's what I'm going to go with. Or you can, work until you have it perfect. That's another way to do it. So I'm going to copy these up and I'm going to offset them like that. And I'm actually going to turn snapping up to 100 and do this again. Maybe 50 actually. Okay, so now that I have two layers, I can fill in the gaps here. So these, it's okay if the bricks go past the wall here. So I'm going to take a copy and just start putting the bricks in so that we have no gaps. This one's going to need to go in a little bit. That's okay. I'm okay with that. So let's go ahead and make some copies here. And we'll fill in the gaps on this side as well. So there's some bricks here. And I'm going to turn snapping off and bring this in. Turn it back on. Copy one down. Okay, that's looking good. And I'll bring another one of these bricks over like that. And another one of these over like that. So now I have a row that I can just keep copying up. So what I'm going to do is select these two rows and simply copy them all the way up. So let's bring this up, stack it on top, copy it again, and it looks like one more should do it. So one more, that's going to look pretty good. Now I think I like the look of this broken one and I'd like at least one more broken one. So I'm going to do, say, this one here. So I'll delete that one, copy this broken one by rotating it by 180 and simply bringing it over. Sweet. Okay, so now we have this wall with the arches. Now we can group this together and bring it over. So I'm going to go ahead and select these bricks. So all the bottom arches down here, all the bricks that we used to fill in the gaps, and all of the bricks on the wall. And we can group as we go. So I'm going to right click, group, and with them all selected still, select the next row. This way we don't accidentally lose our selection at some point. So we'll get the next couple rows and regroup and continue. So the fact that we can group and regroup and ungroup is really useful because, we have this group of bricks that we can use and copy. And then if we want to use part of it, we can simply ungroup, copy, and then regroup. And so it makes things really easy. Okay, right click, go to groups and regroup. And now we have this one huge group that we can make a copy of and simply bring all the way over into our level. So we can go ahead and just bring it in and center it right in. And we can check by looking at the grid pieces that stick out and find our cursor and center it based on that, at least roughly. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. It looks like I can turn snapping to 5 and bring it half an increment over and then back to 10. That's if you want it to be, perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn off the super grid and see how this looks. And looks like this first room in the level is relatively complete. It's looking really good. Now you can embellish it with more things. There's trim, there's ruins, there's rubble. You can place some rubble. You've got these corners here. These corners look pretty cool. You can find opportunities, to use trim and corners. For example, right here, I've got a jungle trim 01 and 01 150. We can bring these in here, rotate them, and simply use these as sort of trim bricks. So, there's things you can do with these. Just because I can, I'm going to go ahead and bring them in. I know I'm not working with them over in my work area, but that's okay. This is just, at this point, embellishing with different pieces just to see how it looks, right? So you've got some trim here, and if you have a little spot here, you can look for smaller pieces like this. And these don't all have to be perfect. You can take some of these and you can rotate them, turn off snapping and rotate them, offset them a little bit. You can have a couple of them, fallen over. For example, take this one here, I'll turn snapping back on, and lay it on its side and rotate it out a bit. So it's like this one was, knocked over at some point. So there's all kinds of things you can do. Make this one off kilter a little, stuff like that. And the more imperfections you introduce like this, the more realistic it's going to look. So let's go ahead and just put some trim on the other side by copying these over here, rotate these around, and I'll just bring a new one in. And I'll go ahead and copy a couple, maybe have a few missing. Looks like we have some broken ones here. So, use the broken ones, use the ones that are going to make this look more realistic. So here's a few broken ones, and they don't have to be perfect, so let's make them rotated off a bit. If you do things like bring one in and then bring the next one in like that, then it looks like something smashed into it at one point. Okay, so we got some trim. So that looks good. Just make sure when you add trim that you're not making these spaces too narrow to walk through, Okay, that is going to conclude this video. I think it's starting to look pretty good. In the next video, we're going to continue by going through the arches and doing this little courtyard here. And take a look, we have some archways here, and this looks like something we can reuse our archway with. So we'll probably start with that in the next video. So stay tuned. I'll see you soon.